She walked into Judge Caprio's courtroom like she was stepping onto a red carpet, wearing a Chanel suit that cost more than most people's monthly salary, carrying a Birkin bag worth a small car, diamonds glittering at her throat and wrists. Catherine Alexandra Pemberton, 48 years old, wife of tech billionaire Marcus Pemberton, whose net worth exceeded $3 billion. Everything about her radiated wealth, confidence, and the absolute certainty that this would be a minor inconvenience, quickly resolved with the right words, the right smile, the right implication of who she was married to. She was here for a traffic stop gone wrong, or more accurately, a traffic stop where she'd made everything go catastrophically wrong. The citation said, verbal assault of a police officer, threatening behavior, obstruction. But what the paperwork didn't capture was the 15-minute recording from Officer Jennifer Martinez's body camera, or the pattern of behavior Catherine had exhibited for years, or the fact that her last name had protected her from consequences so many times that she'd forgotten consequences existed. Judge Caprio was about to remind her, and when he delivered his sentence, the entire courtroom would erupt in applause. Before we show you exactly what happened when entitlement met accountability, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. If you love Judge Caprio's legendary clapbacks and his refusal to let wealth buy immunity from the law, please support our new channel Judge's Clapback by hitting that subscribe button and giving us a like. We're just starting this journey, and every subscription helps us share more incredible moments where justice refuses to bend for money or status. Your support means everything as we build this community together. Providence Municipal Court, Tuesday morning, May 14th, 10:15 a.m. The late spring morning was warm, sunlight streaming through courthouse windows. Judge Frank Caprio was working through his docket when the bailiff called a case that immediately drew attention from every court officer present. Pemberton, Catherine Alexandra. Citation number 2025-25678. Verbal assault of police officer, threatening behavior, obstruction of official duties. The doors opened, and Catherine Pemberton made her entrance. And it was an entrance. She moved with the practiced grace of someone who'd attended finishing school, married into obscene wealth, and spent 3 decades being treated like royalty everywhere she went. Chanel suit in cream with gold buttons, perfectly tailored. Hermès scarf. Cartier jewelry, diamond necklace, tennis bracelet, wedding ring with a stone so large it looked like costume jewelry but wasn't. Louboutin heels clicking across marble floors, hair professionally blown out, makeup flawless, manicure fresh. Every detail screamed money, status, access. Behind her walked her attorney, Richard Blackwell, senior partner at one of Providence's most expensive firms. He carried a briefcase that probably cost $5,000 and wore the confident expression of someone who expected this to be resolved quickly and favorably. Catherine approached the podium with a smile, the kind of smile that had opened doors and smoothed over problems for her entire adult life. She set her Birkin bag carefully on the defense table, probably didn't want to set it on the floor, God forbid, and turned to face Judge Caprio with that same practiced, charming smile. Judge Caprio looked up from his paperwork. His expression was neutral, but his eyes were assessing. "Good morning, Mrs. Pemberton. Please state your full name for the record." "Catherine Alexandra Pemberton." Her voice was cultured, refined, with that particular accent that money buys. Not quite British, not quite Boston, just expensive. "Your Honor, may I say what an honor it is to appear before you? My husband and I have heard wonderful things about your courtroom." Judge Caprio didn't acknowledge the flattery. "Mrs. Pemberton, you're here regarding several serious charges stemming from a traffic stop on April 23rd. The charges include verbal assault of a police officer, threatening behavior, and obstruction of official duties. This is significantly more serious than a typical traffic citation. Do you understand that?" Catherine's smile didn't waver. "Your Honor, I think there's been a significant misunderstanding. The officer who stopped me was incredibly rude and unprofessional. I merely responded appropriately to her behavior." "We'll get to that. First, let me review the facts. On April 23rd at approximately 2:30 p.m., you were stopped by Officer Jennifer Martinez for using your cell phone while driving. Is that accurate?" "I was briefly checking a text message from my husband. It took seconds. Hardly dangerous." "Rhode Island law prohibits handheld phone use while driving. Officer Martinez had grounds to stop you. What happened after she approached your vehicle?" Catherine waved her hand dismissively. "She was immediately confrontational, demanded my license like I was some kind of criminal. I tried to explain who I was, that I was on my way to an important charity luncheon, but she wouldn't listen." Judge Caprio consulted his notes. According to Officer Martinez's report, she approached professionally, explained the violation, and asked for your license and registration. At what point did things escalate? "When she refused to show common courtesy." "Your Honor, I don't think you understand. My husband is Marcus Pemberton, Pemberton Technologies. We've donated millions to Providence charities. The mayor attends our holiday party. I'm on the board of 3 hospitals. A little professional consideration isn't unreasonable to expect." The gallery stirred. Someone whispered, "Did she seriously just say that?" Judge Caprio's expression remained unchanged. "Mrs. Pemberton, what exactly did you say to Officer Martinez?" "I explained who I was and suggested she might want to reconsider issuing a citation. It was a courtesy warning, really, letting her know she was making a mistake." Richard, her attorney, interjected smoothly. "Your Honor, my client was simply trying to provide context that might have allowed the officer to exercise discretion." Judge Caprio looked at Richard. "Counselor, I appreciate you're here to represent your client, but I'm going to ask Mrs. Pemberton to answer questions directly. Mrs. Pemberton, I'm going to read you something from Officer Martinez's report. Subject became hostile when I asked for her license. She stated, and I quote, 'You have no idea who you're dealing with. My husband owns half this city. One phone call, and you'll be directing traffic in the worst neighborhood we have. I suggest you get back in your car and pretend this never happened.'" The courtroom went completely silent. Catherine's smile faltered for the first time. "Did you say those words, Mrs. Pemberton?" "I may have been emphatic. But, Your Honor, I was late for a luncheon honoring me as Philanthropist of the Year. The stress of the situation. Did you or did you not threaten Officer Martinez with job consequences?" Catherine's voice took on an edge. "I didn't threaten her. I informed her of potential consequences if she continued to harass me." "That's a threat, Mrs. Pemberton. You told a police officer doing her job that your husband would have her demoted." "I was simply pointing out reality. My husband does have significant influence in this city." Judge Caprio leaned forward. "Mrs. Pemberton, I'm going to share something else from this report. When Officer Martinez proceeded to write the citation despite your information, what happened next?" Catherine shifted uncomfortably. "She was completely unprofessional. I may have raised my voice. You called her, and again I'm quoting the report, an incompetent government drone who probably couldn't get a real job. You told her she was lucky to have any employment given her obvious lack of intelligence. And when she asked you to step out of the vehicle for safety reasons after you became agitated, you refused and said, 'I don't take orders from people who work for me.' Did you say those things?" "Your Honor, I was upset. People say things when they're upset." "Mrs. Pemberton, Officer Martinez has a master's degree in criminal justice. She graduated top of her class at the police academy. She's received 3 commendations for excellent service. She doesn't work for you. She works for the people of Providence, protecting them from dangerous drivers who use their phones while operating vehicles." Catherine's composure was cracking. I wasn't being dangerous. It was a brief glance at a text. Judge Caprio picked up his phone. Bailiff Rodriguez, please ask Officer Martinez to approach. She's in the gallery. A woman stood from the third row. Officer Jennifer Martinez, 34 years old, in full uniform. She walked to the witness area with calm professionalism. Catherine barely glanced at her, as if acknowledging her presence was beneath her dignity. Officer Martinez, thank you for being here. Can you describe what happened on April 23rd? Officer Martinez's voice was clear and professional. Your Honor, at approximately 2:30 p.m., I observed a white Mercedes SUV, license plate PEM-BRTN, weaving slightly in traffic on Westminster Street. The driver appeared distracted. When I got closer, I could see the driver was using a handheld phone. I initiated a traffic stop. What happened when you approached the vehicle? I approached the driver's side, identified myself, and explained the reason for the stop. I asked for license and registration. The driver, Mrs. Pemberton, immediately said, "Do you know who I am?" I responded that I needed her license and registration regardless of who she was. That's when she became hostile. Can you describe the hostility? She refused to provide her license initially. She said her husband was Marcus Pemberton, and that I was making a serious mistake. She said one phone call from her husband would have me directing traffic in the projects. When I explained I still needed her documents, she called me incompetent and said I was lucky to have any job at all. Officer Martinez's voice remained steady, but her jaw was tight. Your Honor, I've been doing this job for 11 years. I've been threatened before. But Mrs. Pemberton didn't just threaten my job. She threatened my dignity. She made it clear she believed I was beneath her, that my education, my service, my work didn't matter because she has money and I don't. What happened after that? I asked her to step out of the vehicle for everyone's safety because she was becoming increasingly agitated. She refused. She said, and I remember this exactly, I don't take orders from people who work for me. I explained she didn't employ me. She said her tax dollars paid my salary. So yes, she did. Eventually, I issued the citations and she drove away. How did this incident affect you? Officer Martinez paused. Your Honor, I went home that day and cried. I've never done that after a traffic stop. I've dealt with drunk drivers, people high on drugs, aggressive suspects. But Mrs. Pemberton made me feel worthless in a way none of them did. She didn't threaten me with violence. She threatened me with irrelevance, with the idea that my career, my service, meant nothing because I'm not wealthy. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Catherine was staring at the floor. Judge Caprio spoke gently. Thank you, Officer Martinez. You may be seated. He turned to Catherine. Mrs. Pemberton, you've heard Officer Martinez describe how your words affected her. Do you have anything to say? I apologize if I upset her. That wasn't my intention. You apologize if you upset her. Mrs. Pemberton, you called her incompetent. You threatened her job. You told her she worked for you. Those aren't things that might upset someone. They're designed to hurt and intimidate. Your Honor, I was having a bad day. My husband and I had argued that morning. The luncheon was important. I was stressed. Mrs. Pemberton, do you believe police officers should enforce traffic laws on everyone equally? Of course. Do you believe your wealth should exempt you from those laws? No, but what? Catherine's composure finally broke completely. But I've spent 30 years being told I'm special. I've donated millions to this city. I've served on boards. I've hosted fundraisers. I've smiled at countless charity dinners and shaken hands with politicians and pretended to care about causes I barely understood because that's what my husband's position requires. I've earned some consideration. The courtroom erupted. Judge Caprio raised his hand for silence. Mrs. Pemberton, You just revealed something important. You believe your charitable donations and social position have earned you the right to different treatment under the law. Let me be very clear. They haven't. He picked up another document. Mrs. Pemberton, this isn't your first interaction like this with law enforcement. Bailiff Rodriguez pulled records. In 2019, you were stopped for running a red light. The citation was dismissed after your attorney intervened. In 2021, you were cited for illegal parking in a handicapped space. That citation was also dismissed. In 2023, you were stopped for speeding in a school zone, also dismissed. Catherine's face was pale now. 3 citations in 6 years, all dismissed, not because you were innocent, but because your attorney negotiated and your name carried weight. You've been taught that consequences don't apply to you. That pattern ends today. Judge Caprio leaned forward. Mrs. Pemberton, I want you to understand something. Officer Martinez doesn't work for you. Your tax dollars don't employ her any more than they employ me or the President of the United States. She's a public servant, which means she serves all of us equally. Rich, poor, powerful, unknown. We're all equal under the law. That's not a theory. That's the foundation of our justice system. Your Honor, I'm not finished. You came into this courtroom expecting your name and your donations and your husband's wealth to make this disappear. But justice doesn't disappear because someone's wealthy. Justice is blind. She doesn't see Chanel suits or Birkin bags or diamond necklaces. She sees actions and consequences. Judge Caprio picked up his gavel. Here's my ruling. For using your phone while driving, $500 fine. For verbal assault of a police officer, $3,500 additional fine. For threatening behavior and obstruction, another $3,000. Total fines, $7,000. Catherine gasped. $7,000? Additionally, you're required to complete 200 hours of community service, not at your charity galas or hospital board meetings. You're going to work with the Providence Police Department's community outreach program. You're going to ride along with officers, including Officer Martinez if she's willing. You're going to see what it's like to be a police officer in this city. You're going to learn that the people who protect and serve this community deserve your respect, not your contempt. Your Honor, this is humiliating. My reputation. Your reputation is that of someone who believes wealth makes her better than other people. Maybe this will give you a different reputation. Someone who learned humility. My husband won't allow this. Your husband isn't standing before me. You are. And Mrs. Pemberton, let me be crystal clear. If you fail to complete these hours, if you show up late, if you're disrespectful to any officer or staff member, if you try to use your money or connections to avoid this service, I will hold you in criminal contempt, and you will spend 60 days in county jail, not minimum security. County jail. Do I make myself clear? Catherine nodded, tears forming. I need a verbal response for the record. Yes, Your Honor, her voice cracked. Mrs. Pemberton, you told Officer Martinez she was lucky to have a job. Let me tell you who's lucky. You're lucky she didn't arrest you for assault. You're lucky I'm giving you a chance to learn and grow. You're lucky that in America, we believe in redemption. The gavel fell with a sharp crack. The courtroom exploded in applause, loud, sustained applause. Officer Martinez had tears streaming down her face. Catherine stood frozen, her world shattered. 6 weeks later, Catherine Pemberton showed up at the Providence police station at 6 a.m., wearing jeans, sneakers, and a department-issued volunteer jacket. No Chanel. No diamonds. No Birkin bag. Officer Martinez was waiting. Mrs. Pemberton, you'll be riding with me today. We're working downtown, responding to calls. Catherine nodded, unable to meet her eyes. Over the next months, Catherine worked 200 hours across 10-hour shifts. She responded to domestic violence calls where women had nothing but still found dignity. She helped direct traffic during accidents, where officers stood in freezing rain. She sat with Officer Martinez during traffic stops and watched people treat her with respect, contempt, fear, and everything between. One night, they responded to a call about a homeless woman causing a disturbance. Catherine expected someone violent or dangerous. Instead, they found Margaret, 67, confused and scared, suffering from dementia, wandering away from her shelter. Officer Martinez spoke gently, wrapped her in a blanket, called the shelter. Catherine watched, crying silently. "Why do you do this?" Catherine asked later. "Deal with people who treat you terribly, for a salary that's a fraction of what my jewelry costs." Officer Martinez looked at her steadily. "Because somebody has to. Because people like Margaret need protection. Because kids need to get to school safely. Because the law means nothing if nobody enforces it fairly. And because, Mrs. Pemberton, my worth isn't measured by my bank account. It's measured by the difference I make." Catherine went home that night and looked at her jewelry, her Birkin bags, her designer clothes, and for the first time in 3 decades, she felt empty. 8 months after her sentencing, Catherine returned to Judge Caprio's courtroom. She'd requested the meeting. She carried no Birkin bag, wore simple clothes, no diamonds except her wedding ring. "Your Honor, I wanted to thank you." Judge Caprio looked surprised. "Thank me? You gave me something my money never bought. Perspective. I completed my 200 hours. Then I continued. I'm volunteering with the department 3 shifts a month now. I've met officers who work second jobs to support families. I've seen communities that need help, real help. Not galas and photo ops." She paused. "I've also done something else. My husband and I are funding a program to increase police salaries and provide mental health support for officers. We're calling it the Martinez Initiative, because Officer Martinez taught me that dignity isn't something you buy. It's something you earn through service." "That's good, Mrs. Pemberton. That's very good." I also wanted to apologize to Officer Martinez, again, properly. She turned. Officer Martinez was in the gallery. "Officer, I can't undo what I said, but I want you to know that you taught me more in 200 hours than I learned in 30 years of privilege. Thank you." Officer Martinez stood, approached, extended her hand. Catherine shook it, crying. "People can change, Mrs. Pemberton. You did." Judge Frank Caprio kept Catherine's case file, a reminder that justice serves its purpose, not just through punishment, but through transformation. That wealth can be a barrier to understanding humanity, but it doesn't have to be. That sometimes the kindest thing a judge can do is force someone to see the people they've spent a lifetime looking past. And that when arrogance meets accountability, what shatters isn't just the person. It's the illusion that money makes anyone better than anyone else. If you love Judge Caprio's legendary clapbacks and his brilliant way of teaching the wealthy that justice is truly blind to bank accounts, please support Judge's clapback by subscribing and hitting that like button. Your support helps us share these powerful moments where entitlement meets reality and humility wins. What do you think? Should wealthy people who threaten police face mandatory ride-alongs? Should charitable donations ever factor into sentencing? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if this story reminded you that respect must be earned, not bought, share it with someone who needs that message. Dramatization for storytelling and education, not legal advice or reporting.